Welcome to the Code Sports NRL podcast, round one of the 2026 Premierships out of the way. A bumper weekend of footy. Who better to join me, Travis Main, than my great mates Dean Bulldog Ritchie, Tyson Jackson. Let's go through this week, boys. The Zac Lomax situation, it's finally done. It's buried. He's off to the Western Force for 2 years. Tyson, can we just move on from this saga now?
Yeah, I've been asking for weeks to stop the Zac Lomax conversation. I'm sick of talking about it. I'm sick of hearing about it. So, yeah, today we've revealed that he's off to the Western Force for 2 years, which pretty much stamps him out of the game for almost the entire period of what he would have been if he was waiting for another NRL club. And look, I think this is the best possible result for all parties. Parramatta obviously don't have to go and play against Zac Lomax. Zac Lomax gets to play some type of footy despite it not being rugby league. And I mean, if you're the Wallabies, you're cheering because Zac Lomax is a hell of a talent. So yeah, let's move on with it now, Travi. Let's stop talking about it. Next topic, please.
Yeah, moving on from that, the Parramatta-Melbourne game, that was a blowout. We went straight into the Broncos getting absolutely annihilated, 26-0 by Penrith, the first game of their premiership defence. Now, Doggy, I know you've had a lot to say about Reece Walsh of late. What did you make of Reece and the Broncos?
Oh, mate, Reece had a stinker. Let's be fair here. Trav, he gets plenty of accolades, and rightly so, and he is a brilliant, exuberant young talent, but he had a poor game. There's no trying to sugarcoat a performance like that just because you are Reece Walsh. He will bounce back, but I still, as I said last week in my column, Trav and Tyson, I still question whether Reece Walsh can find the consistency over a sustained period to go down among the greats. When I talk about the greats, we talk about, the Graham Langlands going back many years, and the Graham Eadies and the Billy Slaters. Slater's probably the best I've ever seen. So, can Walsh attain those levels? It's going to take a lot for Reece to, I guess, have to abandon that swashbuckling style which he uses, which gets him all the glamour and glitz. But does he have the ability to get rid of it? Can he become more consistent on field? And does it become too boring football for Reece Walsh if he doesn't try the impossible? But at the moment, trying the impossible, well, certainly last week against Penrith, it just didn't work.
Well, speaking of that, they've got Parramatta this weekend, and that's a big game for both clubs, isn't it? Whoever loses will be 0-2 to start the year. It's a long way back from there. So, Tyson, who you picking, mate? You think the Broncos will bounce back, or will we see a better improvement from Parramatta?
Yeah, look, I think both teams you got to expect improvement from, because it'd be pretty hard to get worse than where they both were. I think it's really hard to make a judgment on the Broncos just yet, but from my perspective on their game against Penrith, and Penrith looked like $1 million, but they just looked tired. They looked exhausted. There was about 10 minutes into that game where Penrith have taken a run on last tackle. They've been tackled. And I think it was right when Jack Gosiewski got the head knock. They just looked baffled. They didn't look like they knew what they were doing or what kind of they've just gone through for the last 10 minutes. They looked really flat, a bit down. So, yeah, look, I think that's kind of where they're at this point. I don't think they actually played to their ability because of how flat they were. When it comes to Para, they just had no answers for Melbourne. And they're going through all this battle with Zac Lomax during the off-season to stay strong and prove that they're a strong club. But you need to prove that you're a strong club on the field. That's where rugby league games are won and lost, not in courtrooms. So, look, I'm expecting improvement from both sides. Mitchell Moses and Jonah Pezzett, the pressure is on. They've got to have better performances this week. I expect it to be closer, but I think the Broncos, if they can get their preparation right, should put a score on Parramatta this week.
I think, Trav, we should say that it was probably the worst Broncos performance under Madge.
Yeah.
They were off the bit from the very beginning. I mean, the Ben Hunt starting with Ezra Mam on the bench was a questionable decision. But you know what it will do? It will bring out the Madge haters. We've seen them at Brisbane from the minute he walked through the door. I think after last year, after round 13, they'd only won 5 games. So they were out in force then, but he came back to, jam it where the sun don't shine, I guess you could say, Trav, and win the premiership. So, look, they'll be there again. They're entitled to be there again after that first-round performance, but I think it's far too early to be writing Madge off just yet.
Yeah, I agree, Doggy. Now, one of the other big sort of off-season stories was DCE's move from the Northern Beaches down to Bondi there. Now, Doggy, you've covered his whole career up there. What did you make of DCE's Roosters debut over in that big loss to the Warriors?
Yeah, again, a bit like Reece Walsh, it was poor. There's no sugarcoating it. He looked every bit of his 37 years old. Daly Terry Evans, a couple of mistakes which led to tries. He didn't, I think, fall on a kick which led to another try. And overall, it was an extremely disappointing debut given the expectation and the pressure that DCE was under. We know he's resilient, Trav. He's resilient physically and mentally. And the Roosters rarely get their recruitment wrong. So I'm not suggesting this is going to be a write-off season for DCE. It won't be. It just wasn't the performance that we thought we would get first up.
Yeah, Tice, you spend a fair bit of time there around the Chooks. Do you think it's going to take him some time to gel? I thought Sam Walker looked quite likely on the weekend, but him and Cherry Evans, it sort of seem like they just can't figure each other out yet.
Yeah, I think we're in a pretty tough spot, right? When you watch that game on the weekend, it's really easy to point out all the downfalls that the Roosters had because they had a lot. They had a massive lopsided penalty count as well, which I think we got to look at. Like, that really disrupted the flow of the game, which would have hurt Walker and Cherry Evans combination throughout, getting to gel a little bit. But also, they've had a horror off-season, to be completely honest. No one's really touched on it too much, but the loss of Reece Robson, Spencer Leniu before the game, no Robert Toya. The injuries are pouring in for the Roosters. And you look at, on the weekend, Tommy Talau goes down with a knee injury, which wasn't a contact injury, which, throws out the terms ACL, MCLs, things like that. They've had a really disrupted off-season, and a lot of players haven't even taken the field. Hugo Saval is suffering a foot injury as well. So I think before we throw judgment out, we've got to remember that their team is not how it's supposed to be just yet. So it's going to take time for Walker and Cherry Evans to gel, but it's going to be even harder right at this very second while they don't have a lot of their stars on the field. Like, especially defensively, a lot of people want to highlight Daly Cherry Evans defensively. Robert Toya is a great defensive centre, so that's going to answer the questions. If we get Robert Toya back and their defence on that side is still shocking, we know what the answer is, but let's see what it's like when they've got their full strength side. I was just at the Roosters before, and they seem pretty confident. They know what they've done. There's easy fixes there, and I think they're going to be still there and about. So I think it's too early to make such a critical judgment on their halves when they're brand new. We all saw what happened when Cooper Cronk came to the club in 2018. They lost to the Tigers in the first round, had a shocking probably first 10 rounds where it was just inconsistencies. And I think we can expect good things. It's just going to take time.
Now, Doggy, you've been vindicated, mate. The crash of the Titans, it wasn't Des Hasler's fault. One of the most deflating round one performances we've ever seen. 50-10 loss to the Cronulla Sharks. Now, Cronulla, they were on song, but the Titans, Doggy, what did you make of them?
Oh, they were embarrassing. There's no, again, I say the same thing, Trav. No way of sugarcoating it. It was a pathetic first half performance, 34-0. I think it ducked out to 40-0, didn't it, Trav, early in the second half. If there's any consolation, I guess they found some resistance from midway in the second half till full time. They scored a couple of tries. But, it's typical Titans. They just want to throw out the coach. They've done it throughout their entire existence. I think there's one coach up there, Trevor, if I'm wrong, that was there for 100 games. I think it was Cardi, wasn't it? And the rest, the rest have been given the boot in double figures. It's not that simple. You can't just keep booting out the coach every time you lose. I wonder what Josh Hannah's thinking already. He's probably looking over his shoulder after one game. But it was vintage Titans. Let's kick out the coach. He's the problem. And clearly, after that performance, Des wasn't the problem. And it is the playing group that is the problem.
There was a thriller there on the Northern Beaches at Brookie the other night, a Golden Point game, our second Golden Point game of the year already. Ethan Sanders getting it done for the Raiders with that beautiful left-footed field goal. I said to Ricky Stewart, we can't go through another year of these nail-biting finishes for the Raiders. Tice, what did you think of that one?
Yeah, to be honest, in my books, that's got to be one of the most anticlimactic finishes in a Golden Point game. Ethan Sanders has kicked this field goal. Everyone kind of just sat there looking pretty confused, like, what's going on? The ref took a long time to confirm it. It was a strange game, right? You look at how Manly started that game. First of all, Tom Trbojevic, I mean, it's great to see. He looks like he's back to that form that we're used to, that we grew to love with him, and hopefully he stays fit. But for Manly to jump out to such a lead, let Canberra crawl back, then Manly go again. But that's second half where the Raiders have climbed all the way back into that competition, and it's a Raiders team that should take time to click. New halves pairing, new everything. To get to Golden Point, though, this is where I'm a little bit frustrated when it comes to Manly. Ethan Sanders had no pressure on him in that kick at all. Jake Trbojevic was coming. He wasn't coming fast at him. He's 30 metres out. How has no one there recognised that Ethan Sanders, 30 metres out right in front of the goalpost, is going to take a field goal in Golden Point? Like, it shouldn't have finished on that play, or there should have been a bit more of a challenge there. I'm really concerned at this Manly side and what's going through their heads in that critical moment, because all it takes is one field goal, 1 point, and that game's over. And it did not seem like there was any sense of urgency like legitimate urgency in that last play to stop that field goal.
Yeah, Doggy, can you smell a bit of drama over there at Manly? I feel like something's brewing there. Like, they came out of the blocks hot the other night. Canberra didn't touch a ball in the first 12 minutes or something. They had a solid lead, and they somehow gave the game up again. Like, do you think is there a few issues bubbling away there?
Oh, I haven't heard them, Trav. If there are issues there, it hasn't reached my desk yet. That's not to say there aren't. Look, it was disappointing, let's be honest, the way they lost. And look, Tyson's right. Jake Trbojevic was the one putting pressure on young Sanders, and Jake is slowing up. So where was everybody else? That's just an awareness on the field. That's an effort play that wasn't there. And they look back at that video, and hopefully they're a bit embarrassed about that final play, because there should have been 3 or 4 really up there, knowing it probably won't get penalised, although they did get a penalty late in the game for it. But I don't think there's a drama. And to be fair to Manly, they took last year's minor premiers to golden point. So there are, again, a couple of positives in that. I thought Tolu Kola was absolutely outstanding there at left centre. And I think Tyson mentioned Tommy Turbo. He was back to near his best. So there's some good signs there at Manly. A couple of, as I said, effort plays probably weren't there where they should have been for round 1. But in terms of drama, I haven't heard it, Travis. And I don't think there is at the moment. But look, rugby league changes. Manly fans are already all over websites complaining and moaning, and they're entitled to. They want their team to win. But I think it's just, again, let's just take a deep breath just for now.
Now, I covered the Rabbitohs Dolphins game Sunday afternoon there, Suncorp Stadium. I thought some really nice signs from South. Latrell Mitchell, Cameron Murray, sort of really had the bunnies. A good debut from Dave Fafita as well. And I've got to ask you boys this. Wayne Bennett, I asked him in the press conference, do you want to see the fans run on the field when Alex Johnston breaks that try-scoring record, Ken Irvine's try-scoring record? So he needs 2 tries to break it. It could happen this Friday night, Allianz Stadium against the arch rivals, the Roosters. Doggy, what are your thoughts? Do you want to see the fans on the field or not?
Oh, I spoke to Alex Johnston last year, did a big sit-down interview with him, and he wants the fans on the field. He wants that moment, which is like a Buddy Franklin at the SCG a few years ago when he broke the goal record for the AFL. But look, it would be an iconic moment if the fans ran on. It would be an iconic moment in terms of vision, which would be seen for years to come. But look, there are some issues there, Trav. The NRL is saying, no, we don't want it. How long before the fans get off the field? How long before the game gets going again? Could it be 15, 20, 25 minutes? Yeah. Is there a health and safety issue too? If some fan gets trampled on running on the field, then we've got major drama yet again. So I think the NRL has put an edict out to South to say, please support our stance here and not wanting players to go onto the field, fans onto the field rather. Alex is saying other things, but I think Alex might be told this week, maybe just don't say it again, AJ, because as much as it'd be a great moment, I think there are some issues there. Even fans, look at it this way, guys, who jump back the fence and someone's sitting in their seat. Yeah, I know they're only little things, but it does cause mayhem, and certainly for broadcasters, if it ends up being a broadcast game where there's a game after it, it'd cause mayhem.
Yeah, look, I think they've got to say the right things, but what are they going to do if 5 people start? It'll just be a bull rush. So, look, the biggest concern is if someone comes on there and did something to one of the players, which you'd really hope wasn't the case. Look, how do you think it'll play out, Tice? What do you reckon? You're the young bloke around here. Will they jump the fence or what?
Yeah, look, I think we're at a point now where it's bound to happen. I tend to agree a bit. And you'd love to see it, right? As sports fans in general, that image of, if Johnson's cradled up on someone's shoulders and all the Rabbitohs fans, all the NRL fans that are there gathered around watching, it's going to make for some awesome scenes. But there is so much room for something to go terribly wrong. And I want to make very clear, against the Roosters, if this happens against the Roosters and you've got a bunch of Roosters players on the field and then a whole bunch of Rabbitohs fans have run on the field, you know what it's like. You know what fans can be like. Some of them are there for the wrong thing. And that's the harsh reality. All it takes someone to get in someone's face. Someone runs up to, Nafahu White and pushes him or something, or, something like that. There's so much room for bad stuff to happen. So I really hope that because I don't think you're going to stop it, right? But I hope that the NRL and that the clubs involved, the Roosters and the Rabbitohs, have the right precautions, in kind of tact to make sure that this happen. If it does happen, when it does happen, no one gets hurt, no one gets injured. The players' safety has to be at the top of their priority list. There's just so much room for error, and all it takes is one person to do the wrong thing, and it could make a really beautiful moment in our sport turn into something really nasty and really negative. So, look, if it's going to happen, accept that it's going to happen. Realize that there's not much you can do to stop 30,000 people running onto a footy field, but come up with the right solutions to ensure that everyone is as safe as they can possibly be.
Yeah, I think the fear is we don't live in such an innocent world anymore, right? So we've got to say all the right things. You just hope that everything pans out as hoped. Now, the rumour mill's in overdrive already, boys. Some coaches already under the pump. None more so than Todd Payten up at the Cowboys. Now, it's been a couple of weeks since Vegas. He had a poor loss over there. He's got a dream draw. He's got the Tigers this weekend. My beloved Tigers. I finally get to see them this weekend and see what they're going to dish up this year. And he's got the Titans next week. So very, very soft draw for the Cowboys to start the year. Essentially 3 bottom 4 teams. Doggy, what do you reckon of this game? What are we going to see from the Tigers this weekend? And if they win, what do you think that means for Todd Payten?
It's a good question, really, the West Tigers. Trevor, when I say I don't know, I don't like to sit on the fence, but I really don't know the Tigers. You don't know what you're going to get with West Tigers week in, week out. It's the first time we've seen them, of course, this year. From all the talk out of Concord, it's been a very steady build-up. Players have been rapping Benji Deluxe about his attitude. They reckon he's got a harder edge this year. Looks like that the halves will be settled. Dewey will move into 6. I'll be happy he's there. So look, it's a fair roster. I'm not sure it's a top 4, top 6 roster, but I'm sure they would be thinking it's a top 8 roster. It's Leichhardt. It's packed house. It's a great atmosphere. Having said that, their record at Leichhardt isn't always great. It doesn't reflect on the amount of support that they get there. So, look, I don't know with the Tigers. I guess we'll find out by 5:30 on Saturday whether they're a basket case still or whether they have actually taken another step toward getting out of this rut they've been in for so many years. But in terms of Toddy Payten, correct me if I'm wrong, Trav, there was some innuendo and speculation about Toddy last year from memory. And I think I saw a couple of quotes from him saying that he appreciated and applauded the Cowboys for sticking with him and supporting him. But how long into this year it goes if they're winless after 3 or 4 rounds, I don't think they'll sack him. But the pressure builds and builds in rugby league. And in the old days, it was like round 10 or 12 when a coach was under pressure. Now it's like round 2 or 3 and you're under the pump.
Well, he said they're sticking by him, but he is still the only coach off contract in the NRL this year. If he was in Sydney at the Tigers or Parra or the Drags or something like that, the media focus would be relentless. It would be an absolute furnace down there. I just don't think you can even survive in that sort of environment. So, look, time will tell. He's got some time. He's hitting up there in Townsville. He's got the opportunity to turn things around. Who knows how it's all going to play out. Oh, boys, we've had a great round to kick off the season. Another ripper coming up. I think the game of the round could be out at Bathurst, actually. Penrith v Cronulla. Both teams very impressive in round 1. Tice, what do you reckon of that one?
Yeah, it's a huge game, and there's so many around Cronulla, especially unanswered questions. I mean, we're expecting a tight, gritty game against the Titans. They blew them out in the first 40 minutes. I might be one of the only ones. I wasn't really impressed with Cronulla in the second half of that game against the Titans. I think if they were to take that next step, they go on, to break that barrier of just making the finals. They would have run away with that game a lot more. Wouldn't have let 2 tries in the second half. Like, they stopped playing after 50 minutes, sadly. You cannot afford to do that against Penrith. They looked great last week. Penrith looked, I think, the best they've looked since their last premiership in 2024 in round 1 against the Broncos. So it's really going to show where these two sides are at. Penrith, was it a one-off thing? Did they have so much build-up, from the Broncos knocking them out of the finals last year that they came out with their best performance in round 1? Or is it a case of the Sharks, have they actually improved? Did they pull the reins back knowing that they've got this game next week? Is Nico Hines and Braden Trindle the elite halves pairing that people view them as and that the Sharks want them to be? So many questions, and I think we're going to get the answers we need this weekend. So, yeah, I think I'm with you, Travi. Game of the round, apart from obviously the Tigers that are Leichhardt.
Doggy, also in your backyard there, Sunday afternoon at Brookie, Manly versus Newcastle, Tommy Turbo, Kalen Ponga. Manly, they're not going to want to lose 2 games at home to start the year, and I thought the Knights were pretty impressive over there in Vegas. What do you think?
Yeah, they certainly were. I thought Dylan Brown was pretty good. Past mark, wasn't it, Trav? It wasn't brilliant, but he did his job. Kalen was very good. There seems to be a real new bounce and enthusiasm up there in Newcastle under Justin Holbrook. And as you say quite rightly, man, they've had a couple of home games in a row. You start off 0-2 at Brookie. It's a it's a disastrous start to the year. The hardest part about rugby league these days, as you gentlemen know, you lose 3 or 4. It's very hard to claw back because it's such a tight comp. And if you start poorly, the days are gone when you can sort of string together 6, 7, 8 wins to get back into contention. So, look, it's a vital game every week for Manly. But I think given what happened last week, that golden point, given they're at home again, Newcastle isn't an elite side, to be fair. So I think it's vitally important that Manly get the 2 points this weekend at Brookie.